Speaking about the profitability of fresh grocery business, one of the parameters employed to arrive at its accession is about 95% of Nigerians eat one fruit, vegetable, or other fresh groceries because of its medicinal value, especially replenishing the body with vitamin. They are very affordable and high demand by religious faithful during the season of fasting. Hence, green grocers make huge profit margins during such times. Today on SMEL, we'll be speaking with a green grocer whose business is majorly e-commerce driven as against a brick-mortar store. She'll be giving us an insightful analysis on the preservative and the business side of it. I'm being joined by Ojuolakwe Arojo. She's the founder, CEO, Applecart. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, straight to it, what is a fresh grocery business?
All right, so essentially there are different types of groceries. There are those that are fresh, there are those that are non-perishables. A fresh groceries business is one that provides items like fruits, vegetables, that enables clients, customers to enjoy fresh groceries. Essentially, that's what it is.
So why did you venture into this business?
All right, so if you live in a city like Lagos, you know how much time it takes to commute to the market. When you get to the market, you're going up and down, you're negotiating prices. Oh, guy, you go agree 500, no go agree. You know, those kind of conversations. And then when you're done at the market, you go home again. There's so much stress before you start cooking. You get to prep items and all of that, right? So we thought to ourselves, instead of going through all that stress, spending 3 hours in the market, what if we could provide you the market on a smartphone? You get online in 5 minutes, you're done with your grocery shopping. That's exactly how Applecart came about.
So how long have you been in business?
So we're inching towards 10 years, but we started in 2014.
10 years.
So this year we're going to be 9, and then slowly we're moving towards our 10th year.
Okay,
as a business.
I would like to know the experience that you've had through these 10 years, please.
All right, so I think that one thing that you will notice about Nigeria is that e-commerce is something that is just, I think, more recently gaining acceptance, right? When we first started buying food stuff online, who heard about that? But then COVID came, and you know, when COVID came, everybody was stuck at home, so you needed to ask somebody else to do. Everybody that would say, I need to touch the tomato, I need to touch the pepper. That was not possible during COVID because we were locked at home. So I think that also gave a lot of it shed a lot of light upon the sector and made things to grow, you know, within the sector in that period of time. So I would say that it's been a mix of ups and downs, but COVID really brought a lot of visibility to the fact that you can now have people deliver items to you in your home. You don't have to go through all that stress, and that has given Applecart a lot of limelight.
So now, I know you mentioned you started 10 years ago, and the value of money now and 10 years ago is actually not the same. Like, how much can one actually use to start up a business like this?
Whew, that's an interesting question.
Yes.
And I think it depends on the route that you take. So there are different parts of the value chain. There are certain people who they just pack dried items. So things like beans, things like stockfish, egusi, they do that and they pack and they sell through supermarkets or they sell as a retailer themselves. That's one aspect of the business, right? There are other people like us who aggregate fruits, vegetables, meat, everything that you need for your kitchen. That's what you can get through us, right? So I would say that I don't know if I can give you an exact figure that it would cost you to start a business like this. But I would say it depends on the line of business that you choose to go with. With something like ours, if you're doing, for example, a pay before service, right, you may not need a lot of capital. You're starting small, you have a clean area, you have somewhere that you can process hygienically, you can start small and then grow into it from there. But then if you're doing something that involves production and packaging, right, you will need the capital to invest in the items, the machines that will help you at that stage. So I would say it depends on the angle of business that you are starting with. Some you may need as little to maybe 0 to 100K, depending on your model of running your business. So that's the answer to that.
So what sort of machines are we talking about when you talk about machines?
So if you are doing the packaging line of business, for example, you'll be looking at things, and if you're doing, for example, dried vegetables, like you'll be looking at a dehydrator, right? You'll be looking at things like a sealing machine. You'll be looking, if for example, you're doing blending of things like crayfish and co, you'll be looking at a grinding mill. If you're grinding egusi, you'll be looking at a grinding mill as well for something like that, right? If you're doing things like dry panla fish, and I think this is something that relates to those that are beginning to export as well, because Nigerians are now moving abroad into the diaspora and people are shipping food items to them, right? So if you're doing that kind of business, you would need like a, an oven, right, to dry those kind of fishes. So it depends. Again, some people might just choose, I'm just doing panla fish. and that's all that they're doing. Some people might choose, okay, I want to do things like egusi, crayfish. I would have a grinder. I would have a sealer to ensure that when I, pack those items, I can properly seal them. So those are some of the. Some again, you might need an air vacuum, because depending on the country that you're shipping to, there are different.
Lots of machines.
Exactly, there are different things that you might need, depending again on the side of business that you choose to start with. So that's the response to that.
Okay, let's move our focus to food now.
Okay.
Now, most of this, food items, they have short shelf life. So how do you deal with the challenge of spoilage?
That's a fantastic question. And one of the challenges that we have with perishables is that there's actually a loss of almost about 40% of items. Yes, not within Applecart, but just generally as a country, because of the fact that we don't have advanced preservation methods. So, for example, if you go to a market like Mile 12, you will see tomatoes already going rotten. You will see streets that are lined with pieces of cabbage that have been peeled off because they were bad, right? So, for us within Applecart, what we do is we buy according to need. So we don't keep a lot of stock, especially of the perishable items. We want to be able to deliver to our customers fresh and ensure that the quality is guaranteed. So we do, as people buy, right, we're able to gauge, okay, what's the quantity that we need for this week, or what's the quantity that we need for this next couple of days, and use that to also inform how we buy. We also have refrigerator, so that things that can be kept in the refrigerator can be kept there and also extend their shelf life. But again, there's only so much that you can do with items like this. So it's better, and that's what we do. We just buy as needed, so that we can reduce the loss of the items.
Yeah, when we started, you mentioned something about e-commerce not being, we're just accepting e-commerce in this part of the world. So would you tell us what it requires to actually start up this business online?
Okay, so I would say that if you want to start up an e-commerce business, right, there are two models that you can go with. You can latch onto a platform. So, for example, I don't know if I should mention names, but there are two very big e-commerce players in Nigeria, right? You can get a store on their platform, but you can also choose to have a standalone store, which is what we have at Applecart. So it depends on the model that you're going with. If you're going with an already established platform, right, you just have your own name. So on that platform, right, they already have the infrastructure to help you receive your orders, right? So what you will not focus on is the operations, the back end of sourcing the food items, engaging with suppliers, engaging with the customers, right, who you then push to those platforms, and then being able to deliver. So for me, I think one of the issues that we have in Nigeria, and I think it's also global actually, is that what I ordered versus what I got. There's always that concern. This is your tomato. When you bring it, it will not be broken tomatoes. It will not be spoiled tomatoes, and that's a very valid concern, because we want to get value for their money, right? So, to answer your question, it depends on if you are latching onto an already existing platform. If you are, the front end of engaging with customers, sending them to your store where you can collect orders is simple, and then you now need to focus on operations, delivering quality items all the time, so that you can get those people to repeat patronage from you. But if you're doing a standalone, then you now have to look at, okay, are we doing in-house for this website, or are we outsourcing it? So nowadays there are a lot of software engineers, website developers, and people in that tech field that can help you build your platform, right? Again, there are pros and cons to depending on others to help you build your platform, but let's just assume that you've gotten your platform going, right? So the next thing, again, you go back to operations. How do I get the staff? How do I get the suppliers? How do I get the items that will ensure that we are delivering as promised, and the value that the customer needs, they are getting it from us? So I think those are the two things that I would say with regards to that. You're either joining other people, or you're starting your own. But in any case, your operations must be solid, so that whatever you're delivering, the customer appreciates, and they become your evangelists. They can tell their family, they can tell their friends, and your brand grows from there.
So where do you source your materials from? Do you source online, within the city, or outside the city?
Is that not a trade secret? I'm kidding. Okay, so we use primarily, there are major markets who are foodstuff hubs in Nigeria. So for example, Mile 12 is one of such markets. Okay. But then we also have other people who, so for example, for Ijebu Gari, right, we have somebody who is from Ogun State, right? So a city where they produce Ijebu Gari. So we have that person as our supplier. So it really depends on what the items are. We've also engaged with farmers in the past who bring to us, so as opposed to us going out to get those items. So it really depends on what the items are, and then the preferred choice. So for example, a market like Oyingbo also is a very big hub. If you can get there in the morning, 4-5 a.m., you can meet with farmers who have come to offload some of their goods for the week. So that's another example of how we source.
So now let's talk about costing. How much does it cost you to source and transport all of these items,
That question is a bit difficult because it depends on the volume of what we buy, right? And again, as with normal economics, the more you buy, the less it costs you to buy those items because you enjoy economies of scale. And also in terms of transportation as well, if you're doing a large volume of items, then you're looking at a different vehicle as opposed to when you have a small volume of items. There are times where we apply different, we go to different markets or different parts of town, right? So that question is a bit difficult to estimate, but what I would say very simply is that, of course, transport costs have risen since the whole fuel subsidy removal issue has come into existence. So those considerations are simply there because your transport costs, whether you like it or not, you're living in Nigeria, you're living in wherever it is, Lagos or wherever it is in Nigeria, your cost of transportation has gone up. So I would say it depends on how large what we are transporting is at that time. That will determine our transport costs.
So now, do you wait until you have like a certain number of orders before you go to the market, or once a person actually orders from the website, you rush down to the market? How does it work?
So we have a delivery timeline, right? Within a maximum of 48 hours, we must deliver your items. Sometimes it's 24 hours, sometimes it's even same day, depending on when the person's order comes in and what we have available to fulfill. So to answer your question, as far as we are still within that person's delivery timeline, we have to deliver to them. So we get to amass a number of orders, right? Or sometimes orders even come while we're sourcing, so we can actually pick up those persons.
Okay, that's what I wanted
items.
to. Okay,
yes.
So that simply means you have items here. And is it safe to say you actually accept walk-in customers also? Because we've been speaking about online customers only.
So currently, our model is strictly online. However, now that transport costs have gone up, we actually offer pickup services. So people can actually come to pick up. But it's not a walk-in store where you can see the shelves and say, oh, I want to get this, I want to get that. We don't do that currently. We only accept orders online, and then you can pick up in person if you want to.